We'd like to welcome everyone to the opening back up of the prior night meeting. We recessed last night and we are officially open back up for business at this time. We did have one item. Mr. Hughes, did you want to update the board?
Yes, sir. So I want to give you a little bit of information. We did reach out to our consultants with Urban Design Ventures, asked a variety of questions, and so I'm just going to cover a few things. The 5-year Consolidated Action Plan did list the public transit project at $187,842. That project did include 6 shelters to be included. As time has gone on, staff looked at that and realized that they were not going to be able to do the project for that amount, especially when they started looking at the design, contracting that out and things like that. That's an acceptable thing. We would have to include the changes. It had to be reconciled in the CAPER, which is the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, and that's always due. That's actually due later this year. So that's
Mr. Hughes, let me stop just a second. I probably should have called the roll. We're not going to do the pledge and a prayer because we've opened the meeting back up, but we probably do need to call the roll for the record.
Alderman Bingle.
Here.
Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odom.
Here. Madam Clerk, anything else we need to do to open this meeting back up?
No, sir.
Okay, back to Mr. Hughes. Thank you.
So again, the scope of work, original scope of work, did include installing 6 shelters at $187,842. That scope can change as long as it's reflected in the CAPER, which is basically the follow-up and evaluation report. Total project cost estimate for the design of the 3 shelters, purchasing the 3 shelters, and construction and installation of 1 shelter at Fort Totten was $140,757.50. So for the design, we paid Rainey Kemp and Associates $39,000. The shelters cost us $32,677.50, which is just under $11,000 each. And Sal Construction was the contractor, and that contract was in the amount of $69,080. To date, we have received $71,677.50 from that project. So we paid for the design, we paid for the shelters. What is currently encumbered is the contract with Sal Construction, which is $69,080. Okay, so we have not received the invoice for that yet because they have not finished that project. If we stop the project and do not complete it, we would have to pay back the $71,677.50 plus any admin costs associated with the project to date. What those admin costs are, we're not exactly sure yet, but it would be a little bit more than that. So one of the questions that came up would be, would we lose our HUD CDBG allocation because of this? No. We were grandfathered. We will always receive a CDBG allocation. However, if we pay this money back in the upcoming 23 cycle, we will receive $71,677 plus administration costs less, okay, to cover that up. In the following year, we will get whatever our percentage of that CDBG allocation is, whether it's $200,000 or $300,000. So we won't lose any money overall. The recommendation for staff is still to install the bus station at the Fort Totten location where it's currently being put in. We did speak with Urban Design Ventures, and they recommended that the stop be in there at least 6 months to evaluate. And then if we wanted to relocate it. That was their recommendation. And we could do that, but here's the deal. I need direction from you. We can go ahead and put it in the other location. We can put it in on Fort Totten Drive. I just need direction from you, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Foster, do we have any ordinance that would prevent people from hanging out in the shelter or after hours in the shelter or sleeping on the bench or whatever?
I don't think we have anything that's specifically related to bus stops, but I think we could look at that because the bus stop is for folks that are going to use that transit stop. And that transit stop is basically during regular hours of operation. I don't think they have too many stops after like 6 or 7 o'clock. So could we look at putting something in place to, outside of those hours? I think we could address that.
I think that would be a good move for us, Mr. Mayor.
My comment would just be based on all the information that, when this project was put together, that the UBO office is a stop that's utilized on CART. And it's not necessarily that the project was specifically to, put a bus shelter for the UB office. That was already a stop that was happening. And we just kind of were able to partner to make it so that there's going to be protection for the community that is coming there. And I just think that it's important that we recognize that this project isn't specifically for the UBO office. It's for the community and people that utilize carts, and that we've talked many times about consolidating and possibly even getting rid of this building if we went down the route, or the new board went down the route of consolidating. And as a commercial building and trying to sell it, we have issues now with selling things. No one's going to want to take a property that has a bus stop encumbered on it. So for it to be on the street where it's already a stop, I think us working with carts and figuring out a way, like we discussed, about utilizing the side of the building where we have the space to make a walkway, I think is doable for us to compromise in this situation given the information. Because at the end of the day, safety is key, but secondly, making sure that we keep our, this is going to be a benefit to us when it comes to the CDBG funds, and making sure that we're allocating them appropriately. So I support what you're saying and the staff is saying in regards to moving forward with putting the shelter there.
And I will say that if you give staff direction to continue with the installation there, that's what we'll do. If you give us direction to relocate to the other site, if at some point in the future the board gives staff direction to look at selling that property and the new buyer does not want that bus stop there, then obviously we would have to address moving the shelter at that time. So.
If everybody doesn't have any other comments, I have a few comments to make. I'll try to keep them short and sweet. This has been a many errors rolled into one, and learning a lot about CDBG. I learned a lot about it today. It's been interesting where we take money from the government and really are not spending it appropriately. I mean, we had $585,000 at the start of 2020 of unused funds, and thankfully they got it down to about 104, I understand. And I think that was a good thing, but when we don't all work together, I mean, MPO had no input into this, and they are our transportation person. That was concerning. I hear you talk about the community. This is for the community. I find it very interesting when we were debating Stanley White, they didn't want to cross Broad Street. Nobody wanted to cross Broad Street, so that shelter should have been on that side. We were going to build one. It should have been either over by Stanley White or by Roundtree, because the citizens said they weren't crossing Broad Street. It was too dangerous, whatever. If that's the community that is using this.
The whole community. When I say community, I'm saying everybody in the city.
Then I apologize, because usually definition
Right.
of community means the Duffy Field community, and again, they don't want to walk across the street, didn't want to walk across the street when we were discussing Stanley White. So I find that, interesting thing. I just don't think it would be used enough by the community on that side of Broad as it would be on the other side of Broad. I've heard from my citizens, and I'm sure my colleagues here would agree that when their citizens contact them, many of us have taken votes, that we have stood by our even though we knew it wouldn't pass, we have stood by our citizens. So I'm going to stand by my citizens in this neighborhood who have spoken to me, and I've spoken with them. Now, you know that I love an olive branch. You know that I'm always looking for the win-win. I don't want to have to give back $70,000 of money that we've already received, because we do have other needs and things in the city. If we are willing, and the board would agree with me, I say, go ahead, do this. The consultant says 6 months, and in 6 months, move it to the other location and get it out of this location. That would be what I would agree to. Otherwise, my vote is no.
Is that your motion?
Do you want it to be?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No, I
Okay,
have a
you wanna
comment
say
before you
something?
make
Yes,
the
ma'am.
motion. I just want to address something, a comment that you made, Alderman Bingle, about the Sandy White Rec Center crossing Broad Street. And to my knowledge, what I heard from the citizens more so was they did not want their children crossing Broad Street to go to the Sandy White Rec Center. That's some of the information I received when I went to several meetings. Now, for as 6 months, we're gonna put this, bus shelter in 6 months, we're gonna move it. At that point in time, when we move it, won't we be using taxpayers' money?
Absolutely.
So I can't agree with that.
Just to add out there, just to reiterate that this was already a stop. All we did was put a shelter, a bench, and a trash can. This was already a stop on this route.
It's not.
No, it's not.
Inside the parking lot.
But they come into this area.
It's always been inside the parking lot. You could go there, stand there, watch it. It never stops there and lets people off. It goes into the parking lot, lets the people off in the parking lot, and then they enter the building.
Which is also a traffic issue. There's cars that go all around that building. That's a traffic issue as well.
But this area, the UBO office was always a stop. This wasn't a new stop. Correct.
Understood, yeah. And
Right.
the reason they picked it is because that was the way they could spend the most money. It wasn't their number one spot, because
Right.
I think Roundtree Street would have been their number one spot. But it wasn't, they couldn't spend as much money to
Right.
get rid of the
Due
dollars.
to that issue that,
Correct.
is
Spending down the
unfortunate.
dollars.
But also adding in the other part of it, no one's gonna wanna buy a commercial property that has a bus route.
Well, you
encumbered
pick it up
on
and
the
move it.
outside.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
but
not
either way, you're still gonna be spending taxpayers' dollars, and when we
We
sit
spend
here-
taxpayer dollars every day.
We do, exactly.
I know, I
And
mean,
sometimes we make the decisions to spend them how we want to, and with this, it's very ironic and funny for
Well-
something as a bus shelter, we're willing to spend taxpayer dollars, but if we wanna throw Stanley White back in there, it was a big to-do. So what I'm saying is I hear what you're saying.
Wow, I mean, we voted to build a $13 million
$11.9.
standing? $12 million
But we
center?
sit on this board,
and
I
only got
know
8?
Ward 4, I know Ward 5, we sit here on numerous occasions for public works money, which deals, we utilize sidewalks. We ask for sidewalks, we ask for streets to be paved properly, so we're willing to take close to 30, 40, 50, 60 grand, depending on how much it is, to move a shelter,
Let me ask you a question.
and that could go towards these different communities that have issues on sidewalks and stuff. I'm just saying the allocation of money and stormwater. So we're gonna put it here and then move it because a few have a concern. When millions or hundreds of people had a concern about something, we still voted the opposite way. I respect your stance because I'm the same way.
You vote for your-
Right, and you vote for what you're supposed to do. I just feel it is an inconvenience and we're stuck in a hard spot. Safety is a concern. We've created a solution for safety. But secondly, to bring to the forefront, we need to make sure that we're doing right by this money when it comes to the CDBG, because if we don't, it's gonna be a loss for the city as a whole, reducing that money and have to pay it back. And we don't never wanna give any money back to
I
the
agree,
government.
I agree, we don't want to lose the money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Come halfway with it.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we continue the construction. I hate it, but I hate losing $70-some thousand. Continue the construction, and as soon as we check off the boxes and get clearance from HUD, look at relocating the shelter to the other side of the building at the entrance of the utility billing offices. And at the same time, I would like for our attorney to draft us an ordinance to make sure that we have no loitering in and around a bus shelter or on bus benches or whatever. And that would be my motion.
Madam City Attorney, is that a doable type of ordinance, or are we barking up the wrong tree?
I think there's certainly some complexities with it, same way we would with the sidewalk and the public right of way. But certainly, if you would like us to research that issue and to present, whatever is feasible, we can do that.
Then
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, you have a motion second. Is there a discussion about
Yes.
the motion?
Yes, discussion on the motion in regards to, I appreciate you doing the research. I think it should be a separate matter, because to me, we're making a motion based on assumptions that there's gonna be an issue, and we should allow, which, we appreciate our police department just like we do our fire department. We should allow them to do their job before we go and try and create an ordinance. I mean, we don't have an issue right now with homeless population because we partner with RCS. I mean, it's not as bad, but
Come downtown.
yeah,
I
well,
can show
right.
you- show
I
you
understand,
businesses,
I understand
But
that.
because this is a bus shelter, you can do parameters that we can't do downtown. So I think it's realistic, and I think we as a city should start to be more proactive rather than reactive. Wait till something happens, then do it. We think it could be a problem, let's
Well, yeah.
put it in place.
Bottom line is, that if we'd had any idea that this was taking place, I would have never recommended it to go there, period.
I agree with you.
I agree as well.
I mean, and that's what it is.
I would have never
we're all
recommended it
stuck
to go
in,
there.
right, and we're all stuck in a situation. I just feel bad for the remainder of the employees that are here that are dealing with this situation, because they did, since 2019, put a lot of work in this, and this will be the first time that we've been in compliance with these funds and doing what's necessary, and that is major for us.
Well, this will make us in compliance, correct?
Yes.
We'll
As
still
long-
have a little bit of drawdown to do, but yes, with the CDB project, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion under?
Yes.
Yes.
When you talk about people utilizing the shelter other than for a bus stop and, potential loitering in that area and safety and all of this, I knew that was one of the issues here. So that's the big elephant in the room, and I knew that was an issue. But I would like to see the stats concerning the UBO office for any incidents, crimes, theft, fights, whatever has been at that department.
You
What's it gonna
there's
hurt-
none.
What's it gonna hurt
There
to be
hasn't been at that
proactive?
department, but
Excuse me,
Alderman
excuse
Bassett,
me, I'm not finished. I
I'm
have the
I'm
floor.
sorry, I don't
I'm
mean to be
sorry.
disrespectful,
Excuse
but,
me.
no, I'm saying, how do we continue to have a
Excuse-
meeting and people in the audience are making comments? That's not how, I mean, why do we not address that? We tell people all the time, you can't come to mic out of order. We just need to consistently keep the order. We're the governing body that has to discuss this, and we just need to make sure we have decorum in the whole room. I would like to address that.
Well, getting back to what I was saying, and I'm not saying moving forward, yes. I think we should have an ordinance in place to govern our bus stops, shelters. But I'm speaking on the fact that where we are right now, show me some police reports, show me some stats that's gonna say, this has been these many crimes there, this has been this many loitering there, this has been these many fights. Then I can justify to what you're saying when your citizens are complaining about having people there at the bus stops that's not utilizing the bus
It's
stops.
called being
That's-
proactive.
yeah, but I will provide
This is
you-
proactive going forward, I'm talking about now.
Alderman Best, I will provide you, I will get that, because again, it's in my.
Yeah, you don't have to get it from me, I'll contact the police chief
Yes,
myself and get
he
it.
can
Because
get it for you. There's,
I'm just tired of people's talking.
no, but it's not talk.
It's like, we are talking here. This is as far as I'm concerned, we're gonna approve putting this shelter here for 6 months, and then we're gonna move it?
Yeah.
And using taxpayers' dollars to move it? That's unacceptable to me. And that's my opinion, and I respect all of y'all's opinion, but that is my opinion.
Call the question, Mr. Mayor.
Question's been called. Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
No.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
No?
Alderman Odom?
No. Okay, this time, because this is the singular item that we were having a recess last night, I would assume that there's no further business to come before this board at this time.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same, the meeting is concluded.